This is one of my favorites, just because I think it's cute.
So first off, I'm sure you can deduce this, but this game is not connected to the internet. All of the notes that you're gonna see have been written by Coda. This was actually the first game of his that I ever played. This was shortly after I met him at a weekend game jam in Sacramento, where I grew up. I saw him working on this very level, and it was just so different from anything that anyone else was doing. So right away I was like, I have to be friends with this person. In retrospect, I think I was probably a bit too pushy trying to get his attention. I was over-enthusiastic. But he was very gracious about it and very patient with me. And I cooled off eventually.
Did you, bro?
Feel free to skip over any of these notes if they're not doing anything for you. Nothing extra is going to happen if you read all of them. Either way, to me they convey a sense of loneliness. I see this person who's filled with thoughts and feelings and beliefs and has no way to express them except as scattered and unheard voices in a game that wasn't meant to be played.
Another
But
interesting
it's ironic,
thing about
isn't it, that in playing this
All right,
game
Davey.
and seeing how alone Coda often felt, that we get to know him better and actually kind of connect with him. And I have to be honest with you, this idea is really seductive to me. That I could just play someone's game and see the voices in their head and get to know them better and have to do less of the messy in-person socializing.
Oh, so scary,
I could just
so
get to
dangerous.
know you through your work. I think this is why I always liked Coda's games so much, is because it felt like they let me have that connection. I felt as though he was inviting me personally into his world. And then I feel less lonely too.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. Oh, I totally forgot he said that. Okay, so I know that there are plenty of all kinds of people who like this game and have played this game. For me, as a lady, I remember things like that really setting off alarm bells for me. Guys who think that they can, like, look at your Twitter and know who you are, for example. Like, that is not how that works. And you're kind of trained to be wary of guys who talk like this, who are like, I just want to read your work and get a look into your head and figure out what kind of person you are. I mean, this is the kind of shit that would happen to plenty of authors, that will always happen to creative people. I mean, I've been reading a lot about the Beatles, for example, and how fans of the Beatles, especially people who are fans of the Beatles since the beginning, felt like they had ownership over the Beatles, and specifically John Lennon. And their ownership of him led to them feeling betrayed when he started dating Yoko Ono, for example, or if he started making different music or whatever. And I'm not a big John Lennon fan at all. I think that he was really problematic, obviously, but his music was quite good. You can't really deny that. And so people thought that they knew who he was. And when they saw him doing weird stuff with Yoko Ono and, like, being experimental, they just believed that someone else was influencing him. And they didn't know anything. We still don't know anything about him. Maybe that's what happened. But that's one of the most dangerous things I think about art, is this feeling of ownership. And I think that's what makes this game so scary. Because once you get to this point, you realize that this fictional Davy and this fictional Coda have this awful relationship. And just being in relationships where I've seen, like, and also knowing people who have been in relationships where their partner wanted them to be one thing, and then when they weren't that thing anymore, they became, like, angry, and how dangerous and scary that is. that really is what is at the core of what makes this game so disturbing. But also something I can't really let go of, because it really touches into this deep, dark part of anyone who loves things and anyone who's a nerd. Really, it really hits hard on something that a lot of us don't want to talk about, you know? Anyway, I should have kept walking. I'm sorry.
At the end of this level, we're going to see the puzzle again. And here, I'll tell you what I think the puzzle means. Each of these games represents an idea that was on Coda's mind at the time that he was making it. And the puzzle is a way of closing the door on a previous chapter of his life before moving on to the next one.
We don't know that, man.
In each of his games, after exploring a theme that, he might find difficult, Coda can then place this puzzle that he knows has a reliable solution, he understands exactly how it works, and so it gives him a simple mechanism for moving on. And because there's this dark area between the doors, a space between spaces, before you move on, you get to pause. Just for a moment, a few seconds to reflect on and let go of the events that led you here. To step back and connect the pieces together. To grasp at that elusive bigger picture.
Thanks for taking this creepy
this
journey
one is
with
tough.
me, you guys.
It's gonna kind of just spin its own wheels for a few minutes. Hang with it. See, this is it. The whole game. And there's nothing that's particularly interesting about it. You just walk to the end of a hallway. Except, for some reason, Coda gets really fixated on this prison that has all of this modern furniture. And I don't know why, but he decides he needs to revisit this prison. He's gonna start over, use the same assets, turn it into something else. Okay, cool. Here's version 2. There's a bit more to this one, but still it's not really communicating anything. It's kind of just weird for weirdness' sake. So okay, he throws it out and starts
And again,
over.
it's like
this time he comes at the prison idea
Davey
from
decides
a
that he doesn't see anything else in it, so we don't get to see anything else in it. I guess, we should talk about how much fun this game is to play. Taking a step back from, pretending that Coda's a real person and Davey is like this in real life. We don't know what he's like in real life. It is weirdly fun to play, even though there's really no super, game mechanic to it, right? It's just basically a walking simulator. But weirdly I don't know. It's fascinating. It's fun to play in the way that, like, looking at people's Facebooks from people that you knew in, like, high school. That's the appeal of this game. is just pretending that you're looking into someone else's life and listening to Davey gossip about someone. You know, you obviously the gameplay isn't necessarily fun,
you can't begin
but
the chain of events to escape.
There's this dark
There's a version
curiosity
where there are
about
no
this
bars,
game
but
that's so...
you can't actually get to the well. And then a version where the inside of the prison is the outside, and
as
the outside
creepy
is
as
the
Davey
inside.
is.
Let me just blink you real quick through a few more of these.
You know.
He really unloaded on this prison idea. There's nearly a dozen.
Oh yeah, just blink me through,
Personally,
Davey.
I think it's awful to watch this. To see a person basically unraveling through their work. And for what? Like, at what point do you just go, maybe there are game ideas other than this prison that I could be working on? But Coda doesn't have that voice telling you to stop. That particular mechanism of defense against yourself. Without it, you just spiral. And so he keeps going and going and going and going and going.
What? You don't know that, bro.
And then he hits on something. And he likes it. And that's it. He's done. He stops making prisons. This is the very last version of the prison game that he created. And the reason I think it works is that the prison is not actually in it.
Okay. If this is what I think it is, this might be what I think it is. Like, as creepy as Davey is, and how angry he makes me, and just, like, stranger danger. This game is fascinating because it lets you pretend like you're getting a really intimate look into one side of a relationship.
It's a conversation. And so this is what Coda wants, is to be able to talk to someone, to share what's on his mind, and to get some good advice from someone who knows. But the irony is that even in this scenario, you're still talking to yourself. You know, all of these games so far are Coda talking to himself.
See,
I can see why he considers this a fitting conclusion to the prison games. After all of the obsession and frustration, just to be told by someone you can trust that things are going to be okay. Wouldn't that be nice?
It's interesting because we don't know how much of that was changed by Davey.
So what would it look like if
we'll
Coda
never know.
wanted to make a game about talking to someone other than himself?
Okay, this is my favorite part of the game. And this is honestly why I come back to this game.
Is meant to represent Coda's puzzle. with the 2 doors on either side and a dark transitional space between.
Take away the part about how this game is kind of creepy, how the character Davy is playing is awful. This is so good. So we're just gonna play it and enjoy it. And Losey homes make home
You'll notice that the quality of
owners.
the art is a step up from previous games, including this new and improved chat system, which he started using from this point on. From here on out, he begins putting much more effort into the visual polish of his work, and this particular game took 2 months to create as a result.
No.
After the intense set of prison games, this house cleaning level almost feels like cleansing. It's the moment after a particularly difficult or traumatic experience where you just need to let it sit and digest inside of you, and eventually cohere into something meaningful. I know that Coda really liked this game. Of all of his work, actually, this was the only one that he called me up to ask me to come over and look at it. This was during a period of a few months where he was like grossly happy all the time, just walked around with a constant smile on his face. I'm glad he made this. I'm glad he found some peace. But, of course, it can't last. The music stops, your companion is gone, it's time to leave. The door at the top of the hill is now open as well. Again, you can't stay in the dark space for too long. You just can't. You have to keep moving. It's how you stay alive.
So, when I first played this game, this was my favorite part of the game, and I wanted to keep doing the house cleaning thing and having little conversations with this guy at the table, and I didn't want Davy to keep talking, and then it just ends, and this was when I had a really, gut punch reaction, Davy is responsible for this ending. This actually probably could have gone on forever, but I had this feeling that, the character of Davy was the one that ended it, and that we wouldn't be allowed to keep playing this because Davy's interpretation of what games are they have to have purpose, they have to be playable, they have to do all these things, and it's you can't just play a game where you're just taking care of stuff all the time. And this is the first part of the game that I realized that, he is truly like betraying
whole
not
point of
just
the puzzle
his
quiz,
friend,
right?
but us. He took that
sooner
away
or
from
later
us,
you
you
have to
know?
pick up and move. I really thought that was the point of it. This one gets a bit goofy.
Oh, this is a great one. Well, hi. You been here this whole time? Okay. I like that you keep switching seats. Oh, are you a good boy today? Spidey's here. Sweet little Spidey is here. And he is helping us out.
About halfway through the game, the perspective shifts. And you play as the teacher. And suddenly, you discover that your teacher is just as bigoted and afraid as you are. Oh, and also you can move around the classroom now. I fell pretty hard for this one. I feel like it's one of the most relatable experiences that you can have. To assume that some other person is perfect and totally fulfilled in every way, and completely miss all of the little flaws that make them painfully human. I think about this game a lot these days.
It's funny that he followed up
This one took a
the
lot longer than
cleaning
all
game
the
with
others
that
for
one
Coda to
because
make.
I felt
It
like
was 4 months between
the
this
classroom
and the
one
last
wasn't that good,
That's twice
whereas
as
the
long
cleaning
as it
one
took
was
him to
just
make Any other
perfect.
game before this, and it's not like it's particularly complex. So I remember I found that a little strange at the time.
My cat is very upset that I've been playing games for over 30 minutes. This is good. This is what feels very Stanley Parable. It feels like he keeps ramping up the games that he's made and stuff. All right, let's go talk to her. Here we go. Where is the bathroom? Here are all my hopes and dreams. The cones that bounce when you touch them will represent people nearby. Now go talk to her again. I bet you've learned to lean into pain. No, baby. Spidey, you cannot play this game with us.
The game ends with this eerie premonition of what's going to happen next in Coda's life. The solution to social anxiety, to fears of having to perform and having to chase success, the answer for Coda is to withdraw, to hide himself away. Which is what leads to scenarios like the stairs that slowed you down several games ago, where it just becomes harder and harder to access Coda's inner landscape because he keeps retreating. He just keeps backing away from possible connections to anyone other than himself. And to be honest, I didn't consider it very helpful when I first played this game. You know, it looked to me like he was trying to justify the idea of just disconnecting yourself from the world. And that wasn't what I wanted for him or for his games. Because I feel like a lot of his games are inviting me to connect with this person, to bring him closer.
Not necessarily, bro.
But what can you do? After this, Coda went off and took another 5 months to make a new game.
We're nearing the end. Okay, here we go. We're keeping our eyes closed. I don't know what's going on. Do you have your eyes closed? I have my eyes closed. We're gonna just start walking. Yeah. It's very bright. I have my eyes closed and yet a lot of light is getting through my eyelids. Oh, okay. I've opened my eyes. I'm so sorry.
You should probably open your eyes if you haven't already. It's pretty much impossible to solve otherwise. And there is a solution, by the way.
There was a giant door, and then my vision went black. Okay. Aw, dang. So close. We're good at the next time. Here we go. Alright. I'm going. Here we go. The only way to stop it is to speak something that is honest. That light post is there.
Like I said, I was getting concerned. First off, he's never been this explicit in his work about exactly what he's thinking. So where's that coming from? But then even weirder, his work has potentially stopped being an outlet for him. Not like he's having trouble iterating on ideas, but he literally just can't think of new ideas anymore. And in person, he was being a lot more distant than usual. Like, you know how sometimes a person will just deflect anything that you say in order to keep themselves disconnected all the time? It was that kind of thing.
That's not why people
Here
deflect,
was the point
by
in
the
my
way.
relationship with Coda where I really started to wonder if he needed my help in some way.
No, man.
His games are going to get more desperate from here on out. After this game, it's almost 6 months before he finishes something new.
Is Davey gonna start talking? Okay. It's interesting because Davey's speaking like he's some great friend who's always there for Coda. But if you've ever been in a relationship with someone who tries to control you, or someone who idealizes you and tries to like form you to be a certain way, it's not about deflecting that person. It's about building a safe wall that you can use to sort of like pretend like what they're doing isn't happening. And that really like brings up a lot of feelings for me. You know, obviously everyone encountered someone in their life, I mean, unless you're very lucky, that sees you a certain way and tries to mold you in that way, and it's not healthy for you. And it's really hard to deal with that when that person who is trying to mold you and change you comes from this place of like admiration, like Davey does.
If the last game featured Coda talking explicitly about his creative frustrations, this one turns it up to 11. Now, put yourself in my shoes playing this. Here's a friend whose work is exhibiting signs of struggle, frustration, anxiety, depression, even. And yet still, he keeps making games. He keeps throwing himself into the grinder even when he clearly doesn't have the energy for it anymore. Why? What is it for? Because from my perspective at the time and just what I knew of him, this was a result of how isolated he was. He was in his own little bubble, just sitting at his computer all day, not really showing these games to anyone, not releasing them onto the internet, and so he didn't have anyone outside of himself to connect with. He had no outlet to ground himself on.
It's like, who gives Davey the right to say whether or not these games are shared with people? What gives him the right to decide whether or not Coda was depressed or like reaching out or whatever? Like, you don't get to decide. You don't get to decide.
You can't be the one writing both the questions and the answers. Then there's no movement. Then there's no circulation. If all of your anxieties are being channeled into your work, then if the work ever fails, you have no backup and you're just going to crash. Seeing this game at the time that he made it, it looked really unhealthy to me. I was watching him do this to himself, and I hated it. I hated seeing him so trapped. It's like, video games are not worth this amount of suffering. This is someone I really cared about, and I used to get so much joy out of seeing him create. For him to suddenly become angry and frustrated like this, it was the worst thing for me. I don't know. This is what I felt.
It's the worst thing for him because Coda's not creating the way that Davey wants him to create.
I had never felt so rotten. I needed more than I have ever needed anything for this to stop. But it didn't stop. After finishing this one, Coda takes another 7 months and comes up with a new game.